Cleetus McFarland thought his Berlin Raceway debut was already bad enough after crashing out of the biggest race of his short-track career. He had struggled with the car, admitted he was overdriving it, spun late in the race, and collected Keith Herp in the process. But then Dale Earnhardt Jr. heard how people were reacting to the crash, and instead of piling on Cleetus, Dale Jr. did the exact opposite. And he made it very clear that if people really wanted Cleetus to become a better race car driver, then they should have expected mistakes like this along the way. Because according to Dale Jr., Cleetus wasn't doing something wrong by going to Berlin. He was doing exactly what everyone had been telling him to do. And what happened a few nights later may be the biggest reason Dale Jr. is now looking at this entire Berlin experience so differently. So stay with me until the end, because once you see what Cleetus did in his second race at Berlin, Dale Jr.'s reaction starts making a lot more sense. Cleetus McFarland went into Berlin Raceway with a very specific reason for being there. This wasn't just another exhibition appearance or a content opportunity. Cleetus had recently purchased a late model because he needs more experience racing stock cars on short tracks. His long-term goal is to keep moving up through NASCAR and eventually work toward a Daytona 500 opportunity, but there is still a lot he needs to learn. He has already competed in ARCA and made starts with Richard Childress Racing in the O'Reilly Auto Parts Series. But short-track racing gives him something those National Series races cannot provide as consistently: repeated experience racing around other cars, managing tires, controlling the car over long runs, and learning what happens when the grip starts disappearing. So Cleetus bought the car. He went to Berlin. And then the reality of short-track racing hit him. The battle at Berlin 250 was stacked with experienced super late model drivers, including names like Bubba Pollard, Carson Hocevar, Ty Majeski, and several other established short-track racers. Cleetus qualified around the middle of the field, with Dale Jr. specifically pointing to an 18th place qualifying effort as a strong result for his first time at Berlin. And once the race started, Cleetus wasn't simply riding around at the back. There were moments where he had good runs, but he was also fighting tire temperatures and grip. Cleetus later explained that he was essentially trying to figure the car out while racing it, and at one point he was overdriving enough to overheat the right rear tire. That became one of the biggest problems of the night. Then came the mistake that changed everything. With only 14 laps remaining, Cleetus lost control of the car while Evan Shotko was closing in to put him a lap down. The number 33 got loose, spun down the track, and ended up in the path of Keith Herp. Herp had nowhere to go. The two cars collided heavily, and both drivers' nights were over. Cleetus finished 19th. Tristan McKee went on to win the battle at Berlin 250, with Bubba Pollard finishing second and Carson Hocevar taking third. And afterward, Cleetus didn't try to make excuses. In fact, he was brutally honest about his own performance. He said, "Well, I just suck, you know." He explained that he was fighting for his life trying to learn the car, had gotten some good runs, but kept overdriving and overheating the right rear before eventually getting loose. He also apologized to the team whose car he collected, but he also said he was having the time of his life. On the Dale Jr. download, Earnhardt basically asked a simple question: what exactly did people expect to happen? Dale Jr. pointed out that Cleetus had already been told he needed to run short tracks to improve his racecraft. As Dale Jr. explained, Cleetus was doing what everybody said he should do. Dale Jr. specifically highlighted the qualifying performance and the fact that Cleetus wasn't running last. He was inside the top 20, competing against a field filled with drivers who had far more experience in these cars. Then came the line that really showed how strongly Dale felt about the criticism. Who hasn't done that? And when talking about the reaction to the crash, Dale Jr. essentially told the critics to stop acting like this was some shocking event. His blunt response was, "So fucking what?" That was the message. Cleetus wrecked. Yes. Another driver got caught up in it? Yes. But according to Dale Jr., that is part of the learning process. Short-track racing is unforgiving, and mistakes happen. What mattered more to Dale was what Cleetus would learn from the experience. And Cleetus didn't even have to wait long for another chance. Just a few nights later, he was back at Berlin Raceway for the first 75-lap event of the Cleetus McFarland Late Model Series. This time, the story looked completely different. Cleetus qualified well again and immediately showed much more speed near the front. For roughly the first 30 laps, he actually ran second. Think about that for a moment. The same driver who had just crashed out of the battle at Berlin was now running second in another late model race at the same track. That doesn't mean the first crash suddenly didn't matter. It means Cleetus was already starting to show the kind of progress Dale Jr. was talking about. But there was another lesson waiting for him. Cleetus burned through his tires. As the race continued, the performance faded, and he eventually dropped back to 13th. He had spent time at the front, and he had learned just how important tire management would be during a longer short-track run. And apparently, Cleetus himself wasn't walking away from Berlin discouraged. Quite the opposite. Dale Jr. said Cleetus was texting him about how much fun he was having. Dale's conclusion was simple. He did incredibly well. He even admitted that Cleetus performed much better in the car than he expected, because Dale Jr. isn't claiming Cleetus is suddenly ready to dominate experienced short-track racers. He's saying the crash has to be viewed in context, and if the goal is to become a better stock car driver, there is no shortcut around actually driving the cars. That's why Dale Jr.'s defense matters. Cleetus was criticized for crashing at the exact place where he was supposed to be learning how to race. But then, only days later, he went back out, qualified well, ran second for a significant portion of the race, and learned another important lesson about saving tires. That is development. It's messy, but that's what short-track racing can look like when a driver is learning. And Cleetus isn't hiding from it. He is putting himself into situations where he has to improve. The Berlin experience gave him a crash, a 19th place finish, a second place run in the following 75-lapper, and eventually a 13th place result after tire wear caught up with him. And that's exactly what Dale Jr. believes Cleetus needs right now. The biggest takeaway isn't that Dale Jr. thinks Cleetus is perfect. He clearly doesn't. It's that Dale understands the difference between a driver failing and a driver learning. Cleetus made a mistake at Berlin. He admitted it himself. But he also went back out and immediately showed signs that the experience was teaching him something. And if Dale Jr. is right, that may be far more important for Cleetus's NASCAR future than where he finished that first race. Because eventually, the crashes have to become lessons. The tire mistakes have to become experience. And the difficult short-track races have to turn into better racecraft. That's the entire reason Cleetus bought the late model in the first place. And after watching what happened at Berlin, Dale Earnhardt Jr. clearly isn't ready to give up on him. In fact, he seems more encouraged than ever. Cleetus still has a long way to go, but now he has something even more valuable than a clean debut. He has real short-track experience. And if he keeps coming back, keeps learning, and keeps putting himself against drivers who are better than him, that Berlin crash could eventually become one of the most useful mistakes of his NASCAR journey. So what do you think? Was Dale Jr. right to defend Cleetus McFarland, or should Cleetus be held more accountable after the Berlin crash? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want the latest Cleetus McFarland and NASCAR news, make sure you're subscribed to NASCAR Nation News, because this Cleetus story is far from over.